Why is the United States so much more religious than Europe? This is a phenomenon known as American Exceptionalism, and I want to cover that in this video today. So this will be the third video on a series on the topic of secularization. In the first video, I talked about the main arguments for classic secularization theory, and there's three factors in that: societalization, social differentiation, and rationalization. In the second video, I talked about one of the main critiques against classic secularization theory and talked a little bit about the differences in religious participation in the Middle Ages and today. In this video, I want to talk about American exceptionalism. So the United States and Europe, especially Western Europe, are both highly modernized nations, and both of them have all of these main factors of classic secularization theory. But for some reason, religious participation and fervor in the United States is much higher than it is in Europe, especially Western Europe. Why is that the case? Well, many people have tried to explain this theory of American exceptionalism. Many books have been written, articles have been written, and many explanations have come forward. What I want to do in this video is talk about the two explanations that I find to be the most convincing. And the first is the difference in religious or in church-state relationships between the United States and Europe. So historically in Europe, church and state were intricately connected. And what happened is, if people would rebel against the state, they would by nature be rebelling against the church because of how connected they were. A really fascinating example of this was happened recently, where Pope Francis visited Belgium. And as he was leaving Belgium, he was on a plane ride back, probably even out of Belgian airspace, and a reporter asked him about abortion. And he compared abortion to hiring a hitman to come and murder someone else. And he has described this many times before. This is no news of Pope Francis saying something like this about abortion. Well, it upset the Belgian prime minister so much that he called the papal nuncio to Belgium, to his office, and went off on him and demanded an apology, that another head of state would comment on their politics. Now, to many people, this seems head-scratching that he would do something like this. Heads of states often comment on the politics or laws in other countries all the time. Well, it starts to make sense if we realize the sensitive nature of church and state in Belgium. In the past, they were intricately connected. So he's rebelling against, he has this sensitive idea, and even in his critiques of it, he had brought forward this past tie between church and state in Belgium. Whereas you look at the United States, and from its very founding, the separation of church and state was a key principle. Now, many people still misunderstand this principle, but that's kind of a topic for another video. But it has been argued that this is one of the main reasons for continued religious participation in the United States. So why may this be? Well, churches are free to operate on their own without control or regulation from the state, thus removing potential barriers and tensions between church and state. It also forced individuals to take greater responsibility in their local church. Even today, in places like Germany, the government takes care of the churches, and people can pay tithes and taxes to do that, but the church does that. Well, in the United States, that was never the case. In order for a church to be built and continue running today, it relies upon people, parishioners, giving money to it. So their individual responsibility. And it kind of reminds me of a famous quote by Alexis de Tocqueville. He said this: "I wondered how it could come about that by diminishing the apparent power of religion, one increased its real strength." So he was coming from the Europe situation, saw the United States, this separation, which would seem to diminish the apparent power of religion, but instead it had the opposite effect. So this, and you can even look in Europe today and see many of the countries like Belgium that in the past had the strongest tie between church and state are today the most secularized. So this first explanation is that the separation of church and state in the United States had great effect for increasing the power and vitality of religion. The second argument is an argument put forward by the American intellectual social critic named Mary Eberstadt. And she examined this problem again and talked about a point that secularization theorists, both opponents and proponents of it, are missing, and that's what she calls the family factor and differences in family formation. So she looks at the United States and Europe and says that in the United States, there are more marriages and there are more children per marriage, and these are two kind of proxies for measuring the relative strength of the natural family. Now, she says that we tend to think that people have religious conversions, and then after that, have a higher view of family. But she shows that there's at least enough evidence to show otherwise, that people form families and then from that become more religious after that. She says that it could be at least be shown that that is as much the case. So she says that because in the United States, one, Americans and Europeans just have different views to marriage, and she really goes into this, but also because there are more marriages in the United States, there are more children per marriage. The natural family unit is stronger in the United States than there is in Europe. Therefore, it makes sense that there is an increased religious vitality and participation in the United States. So I think both of these arguments really help make sense of the American situation. Now, I'm going to continue this video series on talking about the topic of secularization because I think it is fascinating and something we all need to know today. And as always, please subscribe to this channel. You can stay up to date on all of the videos that come out. Please like this video. It helps boost it and allow more people to see it. Please comment below because I would love to hear what you think about this topic. And as always, check out our website at culturallycatholic.org. God bless.